Why do so many work problems feel confusing, unfair, or hard to fix? Work and organizational behavior are shaped by context, perception, interpretation, and systems, not just individual traits or effort. In this bonus episode, we'll discuss why is organizational behavior harder than it seems. In this video, we'll explore why OB rarely offers simple answers, people can experience the same situation very differently, intent is easy to misread, and effort alone doesn't always fix system problems.
Almost nothing is absolute in organizational behavior. In physics, you get the law of gravity, and in organizational behavior, you get it depends. In organizational behavior research, some ideas do show up again and again across people and contexts. Take homophily in our social networks, for instance. It's the idea that like attracts like. Miller McPherson and colleagues popularized the idea that similarity breeds connection in 2001, but it goes all the way back to Aristotle, who said people love people who are like themselves. It's a very old idea, but it's not an absolute one, because let's be honest, every dark romantasy book proves homophily wrong. The tiny, spunky, morally grounded girl next door always ends up with the 8-foot-tall, brooding, 12-castle-owning fey prince that has the emotional availability of a stool. OB has these enduring ideas that show up across people, places, and time, but there's almost always an asterisk. So instead of saying X leads to Y, OB researchers say X leads to Y under Z conditions. Z is the context, it's the vibe, it's the situational variables at play. Money does tend to motivate people, and that's a general effect, but how much motivation you get from money depends on who you are, what situation you're in, and that's the contingency. So if you're someone who loves hard and fast rules, organizational behavior might be a challenge for you. But if you lean into understanding these uncertain patterns of human behavior and the conditions that shape them, that's where we'll grow. Perception is the process by which we organize and interpret sensory impressions to give meaning to our environment. Now, more than ever before, our senses are constantly bombarded with information. Think about walking through your front door at work. There are dozens, hundreds maybe, thousands of things competing for your attention. Furniture, people, signs, sounds, smells, supplies, and within each of those things, there are even more stimuli competing for your attention. The color, texture, movement, meaning. And some of those things fade into the background while other things jump out at us immediately. Our brains have to create shortcuts for managing all of that information, otherwise we'd be completely overwhelmed all of the time. Over time, we stop seeing most things as individual details and start seeing them as just categories. Take a stand of retail products. Eventually, our brain just starts to register it as the stand. If a new product is added, the novelty might briefly grab our attention, but most of the time, it's still the stand. However, your boss might notice whether every item is in its correct place. A customer might only notice the rack if it includes something they want. Another employee might notice whether it's blocking a walkway. Same stand, very different perception. That's because perception isn't just about what's out there, it's shaped by some powerful forces. Some of the factors reside in the perceiver, the things that we are motivated by, interested in, experience, and we expect. Some are influenced by the target, things like the novelty, the size, the intensity, and some are the situation, the timing, the context, the workload, the stress. And this results in two people can experience the same environment very differently. And the only way to know how someone else perceives a situation is to ask them. Perception explains why misunderstandings happen so easily at work, even when we're all in the same room in the same conversation dealing with the same problem. If you want to see this for yourself, here's a challenge, something simple that you can try with a friend. The next time you're in a new place with someone else, be it a coffee shop, a store, a campus building, take a few minutes with them and just notice what's going around you. Then you can take turns finishing this sentence, I noticed this, I noticed that, I noticed this, I noticed that, and we take turns sharing what we notice. We're not explaining or interpreting, we're just noticing. You'd be surprised by how different what you notice is from what they notice. And that's our perception at work. It explains why misunderstandings happen so easily. At work, we often assume intent is obvious. If someone doesn't respond to an email, we assume they're ignoring us. If a coworker pushes back in a meeting, we assume they're being difficult. But here's the problem. Intent lives inside people. Impact is what shows up on the outside. We almost never experience our own behavior the way other people experience it. From the inside, our behavior feels reasonable. We know what we meant. We know what we were trying to accomplish. We know the pressure we were under. But from the outside, other people don't have access to any of that. All they see is our behavior, our words, our tone, our timing, and they fill in the gaps. And when people fill in gaps, they usually rely on assumptions, past experiences, and whatever most seems plausible in the moment. That's why intent gets misread so easily at work. It's not because we're bad communicators, but because we're all interpreting behavior without complete information. This doesn't mean intent doesn't matter. It just means intent doesn't speak for itself. When things go wrong at work, the default advice is almost always the same. Try harder, be more motivated, care more. Most people are trying. They're not underperforming because they don't care. They're underperforming because something in the system is getting in the way. Maybe it's unclear expectations, conflicting priorities, too many demands, not enough resources. Trying harder in a system that's broken often leads to burnout. Organizational behavior research shows this again and again. Performance isn't just about individual effort. It's shaped by job design, coordination, feedback, and how work is structured. When we tell people, try harder, without addressing conditions, we're treating a systemic problem as though it's a personal failure, and that doesn't improve performance. It just exhausts people. Sometimes the solution isn't just more effort. It's being clearer. It's designing things better.
In this bonus episode, we covered the question, why is organizational behavior harder than it seems? The key takeaways are that organizational behavior explains patterns, not rules, that people experience the same work environments very differently, that intent is easy to misread and harder to infer, and that designing better systems is more effective than just asking people to try harder.